Dad's shop this morning. In the back of the truck, I don't know if you can see it out the window there, we got our 1925 1.5 horse Sattley gas engine. Last year down at Old Threshers, I think on Saturday of Old Threshers, it started giving me fits and wasn't running good. And for years, that has had just enough spark to run. Like, you would smash the spark plug almost completely shut to get it to run. And it finally got to where it had almost no spark. Of course, nowhere around had a condenser for that. I went and got a automotive condenser to throw in it, tried to make it work, still was giving me fits. So I've ordered a correct condenser for it, and we're gonna take it out to Dad's and work on it and see if we can get it going again. We made it out to Dad's, got the engine unloaded and rolled in the shop here where we can work on it. It's a 1925-ish, somewhere right around there, Sattley, and it's the same engine as the Wizard engine that I did a video on about a year ago, and this is identical to that, except that has spoke flywheels and was painted red, and this has these solid disc flywheels and was painted this robin's egg blue kind of color. And this engine has always been an engine that we run one of our water pumps down at Old Threshers, and we start it and it will just sit there and run all day long. But the whole time we've had it, it's had weak spark. You had to smash the spark plug gap almost all the way shut to get it to fire. Last year down at Old Threshers, it finally got to the point where it just wouldn't stay running. You start it and every time you turn around it'd be dead, and it had almost no spark. I went out to one of the parts stores there in town. I just got an automotive condenser to put in there to try to fix it. I've done that on another one, and on the other engine it got me by, but it didn't help out on this. It still would not stay running. I got this cover off of this side of the magneto. I didn't bother putting it back on down there, but I've got it right here. But let's go ahead and tear this the rest of the way back apart to get that condenser out of there. While we're in here, I'll get a piece of sandpaper, clean up them points, and maybe get a little bit of carb cleaner if we have any here, and spray a little carb cleaner in there to clean that out, and put the new condenser in. We'll see if that gets us enough spark to get this thing running again. I should have brought a brand new spark plug out with me, but I didn't. But I do know I put a new spark plug in it down at Old Threshers last year because it was giving me fits, so I was just trying everything I could to try to get it going. So let's take this the rest of the way apart here. Like I said, I didn't even bother putting it completely back together down there. I just put it back together enough to try it, and it still wouldn't run. So I put the cover and the two other little screws in our toolbox because I knew it would have to come back apart here. Hopefully, having a condenser that is the modern replacement condenser for this will get it back sparking good. There's a little spring on here on the inside of your wire that touches a little post on the side of the coil there. And that is not in real great shape either. It's slid clear off. I don't know how, over time. You wouldn't think that would be able to move, but it's barely touching that. So that could be part of the issue too. I don't think that the spark plug wire is long enough, because you could turn that case a half turn and have it line up with that one. But I don't think the plug wire that's on there now is long enough to let it go clear around there, but we might end up having to run it off of that post. This one, you can see where the spring was hitting there, and it was just barely touching the side of that post. And I've seen other ones do that. I don't know if they just heat gets to them and the stuff kind of melts and lets it move around there or what. But first things first, we're gonna get that condenser that I put in there last year back out of there and get this new replacement condenser put in there. I do not have the original condenser with me, but I've got a picture of it on my phone, so I'll find that and show you a picture of what the original condenser was. The screws don't turn out very far, but they're actually long screws that go all the way through to the back before they screw into anything. And here's the automotive condenser that I put in there last year. The original condenser had like a stud with a nut on each end of it, and one wire connected to one end, the other wire connected to the other end. So I just have one of the wires skinned and grounded against the end or the outside of the condenser, the wire coming out of the center of the condenser hooked to the other one. But the new condensers are like this. I'll take it out of the package so you can see it better. Bought these condensers from Flywheel Supply. They're an Iowa company, so kind of local to me. And it says black wire to ground, red wire to contacts, so you know you'll get it in there the right way. And it's just a little condenser with wires coming out of it, so I can take off this old wire, take off that old wire, and just wire it in with the wires that came with it. And hopefully that will fix my issue here. Okay, I got the old condenser out of there and all unhooked. The new condenser will sit right back in that hole. The red wire has to go underneath of this little clip deal there where that nut is, and then the black wire goes to ground right down there. Let's see if we can get this hooked back up. Then we'll address the issue with that post on the end and trying to get that lined up where it will function well. I'm going to try to get this red wire in here first because it's going to be a little trickier to try to weasel back in there, and I'm sure everything I do, my hand's going to be right in the way so that the camera can't see what's going on well, but I can't get the camera in there and myself in there at the same time very well, so this wrench is not the right size, but it's a metric wrench and it is close enough to get in there and work. But this is a 6mm wrench. That's a pretty tiny little nut in there. Okay, I'm going to quit right there. I don't want to tighten that too tight and mess anything up. This other end will just go back behind that ground screw. I got to get it right down in behind that screw, and I keep hitting that washer, and then the washer leans back and then I can't get it in there. Put that in place, tighten that screw back down. There we go. And then the condenser I already just poked right up in that hole there. It's a lot smaller than the original one was, but goes right back in there. stick this cover back on here. And then I'm going to get a little piece of fine sandpaper and clean up these points. Now, the points in here, you can get a hold of the bottom of the, there's a little bolt that goes through there. You can get a hold of the bottom there, and I don't know if you can see those points open and close in there, but I can pull that down a little bit, get in there with a little piece of fine sandpaper and shine up those points a little bit. Even that little strip of sandpaper that I made was too wide to go in there. I'll have to fold it over. There we go. Shine that up just a little bit. Now I'm going to take the corner of a business card and put in there and shine it up again. That's what all the old timers used to say, use a business card to shine up your points. Fold that over a couple times so it'll fit in there. No, come on, get in there. They're dirty. There's stuff on there. Okay, I got those points to where when I shine with a piece of business card in there, it's perfectly clean when it comes out now. And I came up with an idea for my piece for the spark plug wire. Now, where'd I put it? It's got this little spring that comes out of here. And it's got a touch on this little post on the side of the coil, right there. The spring's got to touch that. That's what bridges the gap to the wire. The other side of it has a post on it also, so you could have the plug wire come out either side. But my plug wire is too short to come from over here, and still that post, the one that you're not using, has to... So let me set the camera back down here. The plug wire comes out this side of the case. The opposite side of the case on the inside has a little spring clip, and that little spring clip touches the post on the opposite side to ground out that side so the spark comes from this side. So even if I did turn around and find a longer spark plug wire for it, that's not going to be lined up here. So I think I came up with something that'll work all right. We'll see. I just bent the end of my spring a little bit so that when it comes in through there instead of, you can even see, I don't know if the camera will pick it up very good, but you can see where the spring's been hitting on the side of the coil there. Instead of hitting right there, it'll come over and touch on that post. So we're going to give that a try. I cleaned up the end of my spark plug wire. I took a little piece of sandpaper, put it down in there, and took a pencil eraser and pushed down in there and turned it to clean up the contact in there. The contact on this side is nice and clean, so is the spring. So I'm going to shine up this end of the spring, shine up both of these contacts on the coils and this little contact in here. So everything that's making contact is good and clean. And then we'll put this back together. We'll take the spark plug out and ground it on top of the engine and crank it over and see if we get a good hot spark now. I'm going to shine up both of these contacts that are on the coil. Just hit them with a piece of sandpaper so we know that they're making good contact. I think I'll even clean up the ends here on the inside of the cover plate, because all those parts make contact to ground stuff out. So get all those things cleaned up a little bit so that we know everything that is supposed to be making contact or grounding or anything is doing its job. Then with any luck, we're going to have a much better spark on this engine. We've been running this engine down there at Old Threshers since probably, I don't know for sure what year we bought the whole lot of engines that this came in, but probably around 2000. And the entire time we've always have to have the spark plug on this engine with the gap smashed almost all the way shut on it. Everything that needs to make contact has been shined up and cleaned up, so it's got to be better than it was. So let's put this all back together. Now I'm gonna have to make sure when this goes in there that the bent part on the end of the spring is facing the right direction, so it comes up and makes contact there. And we'll put that in. Well, I feel like there's somewhere pretty close to a 0% chance that the camera is going to be able to see back in there and see what I'm trying to show you, but the end of that spring now is directly over the post on the side of there. So hopefully that makes a good contact there and works out well. Now I got to get my front cover slid back up in there without moving anything around too much, because I don't want that spring to move. There we go. Get the screw in this front side first so I don't have to try to hold that in place, and I'll get that back one tightened up the rest of the way. The ones coming in from the back are a little bit difficult to get the old screwdriver in there. There we go, that's good enough. That'll hold that side in place so I can get at a better angle back here to get this back one turned in the rest of the way. I certainly hope that this makes this thing have a good hot spark. You would think that just having every one of those contacts cleaned would make some difference. This Sattley engine and the Wizard engine that I've got at home are a neat little engine. They made them so that you could use a Model T Ford piston, connecting rod. By doing that, they made these engines so that every town that had a Ford parts dealer, you could get parts you needed to repair your engine if something broke on it. Pretty good idea. Back when things were made for the consumer to be able to work on your own stuff. Oh, come on, get in there. Alright, let's grab a wrench and take the spark plug out and see if we got good spark now. Alright, I cleaned up that spark plug. I already spread the gap back open. I don't know if I can get it at the right angle here, but I don't know. I just usually run my pocket knife blade between the contacts, and that's how I gap the spark plugs on these engines. It doesn't have to be super exact. Usually the owner's manuals for these usually said to gap them to the thickness of a well-worn dime. So I just run my pocket knife blade through there, got it gapped a little bit there, maybe you can see it, and then I'll set this down for a second, then I'll clip my plug wire on here. Let's put the spark plug back in it, and we'll see if we can crank this thing up. If it starts, I'll shut it back off, and then we'll drag it outside in the open and start it back up out there for a while. Okay, I know it's got fuel in it. I'm going to move the camera a little bit here, get it a little more out of the way. Close the choke. There's a little timing lever that you got to have flipped up so it doesn't kick backwards when you try to start it. Just crack the fuel a little bit on this one. I don't have any water in it yet, but I'm not going to run it for long. I'll just see if it starts, and then we'll get it outside to run it. Try to start there. Okay, I got it running. Let's drag it outside, and then I'll explain once it's outside what I had to do here. Alright, I ended up having to run back to my house and grab a new spark plug for that engine. After I shut the camera off, I messed around with it a little bit more, and it just would not start. It popped a couple of times, but even though I had replaced the spark plug down at Old Threshers last year, and I cleaned it up here, I'm not surprised that the plug was bad, because last year down at Old Threshers it just kept losing spark, and then it would flood itself and die. So that poor spark plug got flooded with fuel and fouled out over and over down there. So I went home, got a new spark plug, slapped a new spark plug in it, and the very first crank it started right up. I should have turned the camera back on before I started messing with it again. But now it's sitting there running nice. I'm going to let it sit here and run for probably a half hour or so before I go home, and then when I come out here on the next day off work, I'll fire it up and let it run for a while again. Good running motor. It usually sits in our display down low pressures, and that's one of the first ones we start up in the morning, and it'll sit there and run on our water pump until we head to eat dinner that night. Thanks for watching, folks. If you haven't already hit the subscribe button and the like button, please do. It sure does help us out. If you're interested, you can find us on Facebook. Just search up Cutler's Antiques on Facebook. It's very easy to find there. And if you like the content we're putting out and you want to help us out, the best way you can do that is when the ads come up, just let those ads play. If it's a long ad, let the first 30 seconds play. That's enough to make it count. Thanks for watching, folks. Come on back next week. We'll have a video of something here for you to watch.